What the fuck is up,
You
David?
tell me, man. I'm
Dave.
hearing some good tunes in my headphones, dude.
Oh,
I know
shit.
that.
This
I
is
know that.
my old rock band.
Is this High Watt? Smoking.
Yeah. Glitter and blood beneath my feet. I don't know where I came up with that.
That's brilliant. Bob Dylan's got nothing on that. Blood and glitter beneath my
You flatter me, bro.
blood and glitter beneath my feet.
Well, I had a pretty good lineup at the time for this band. So, this song had no premise. I think, live inside of me, it's the only... Yeah, it's like venom in my veins. Anyways, whatever.
I love it.
Well,
I love it.
standing in the acid rain, it's the only friendship that I know. Yeah, Chris Olney's on drums.
Awesome.
You did an excellent job, Chris, on the drums. Probably the best drummer I've ever known or met, seen in life.
He's a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mario Alvarez, Jason Westbrook.
That sounds great, man.
Actually, I think another guy we had named Derek was filling in at that time.
You know what I want to know?
Yeah.
Is where did you come up with the name High Watt Crucifixers? Because I think that's like one of the best band names I've ever heard.
Dude, thank you.
That's
All right.
wicked.
I'm going to go ahead and shut me off real quick. Done, Mendez. You're done.
That was great.
Thank you. Yeah, the High Watt Crucifixers came from... All right, so when we were coming up with the band name, I wanted to name the band... Because I like that band name, the Lord High Fixers.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So Lord High Fixers, and then there was a gang that I used to want to try to be with in San Jose, California when I was a kid. And they were a tagging gang. And they used to go around San Jose and they used to write the Lords. And,
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to be a part of the Lords. Like I wanted to be in
Okay.
that gang. I kind of grew up in gang culture.
Yeah.
So, obviously I never got into the Lords. But
Probably a good thing.
yeah. Honestly, yeah. It really
We might not be here today if you did.
Right. They did a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I'm like, the Lords are the toughest motherfuckers around. That's who I want to be with. They'd never let me in, but they let me associate with them.
Yeah.
They let me go tag with them, but I could never write Lords underneath my tag so I could claim affiliation.
Because you weren't official.
I wasn't official.
Yeah.
So I wanted to name the band the Lords.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I want to call the band the Lords. And Mario Alvarez was like, dude, if you name the band the Lords, I'm going to quit the band. And I'm like, dude, you're in a band right now called X-Ray Presidents or some shit. And then he's like, oh, it doesn't matter, man. I don't like the band. If you name the band the Lords, I'm out. And then I'm like, well, it's got to be something cool like the Lord High Fixers.
Yeah.
Right? And then Alanis was like, no, Alanis wasn't in the band at that point. And then so Westbrook goes, well, dude, it's like electric, dude. Like think about like Broken Teeth. They have like these lightning bolts and shit, like something powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, dude, how about High Watt Lords? And then they're like, no, dude,
Almost,
no.
you're getting there.
I'm like, how about the Lord High Watts? Because I like the Lord High Fixers.
Yeah.
Another band around town, I think we're called Transgressor, and I really liked that band. I like the name anyways.
Yeah.
And then finally we ended up agreeing on High Watt Crucifixers.
I love it, dude. I remember that band when it was around, and I remember thinking that is just like one of the coolest band names I've ever heard. And you know, I've heard a million band names, you know, so that's a real standout. I just always wanted the backstory on that. Really cool.
Yeah, that's how we did. And you know how so we were all like online. Like I was at work. I used to work for General Motors.
Yeah.
So I had a manager position, and of course I'm like just delegating all my duties to other people. Like I'd pull people off the phones. I'm like, you're in charge of this now,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna talk to my bandmates about my fucking band name. So that's it basically. So I'm like going back and forth. Remember
Priorities.
remember like was it IM or Instant Messenger?
Yeah.
So like me and these motherfuckers would just be like, oh, the Lords, if you named the band the Lords, and finally we came up with that one, and then that name really stuck. Before that though, I was in a band with Pablo. I don't know if you know Pablo Diablo.
Yeah.
He played in Black Novas.
Is he in Killer Hearts?
I think, yeah, right now he's in Killer Hearts, or he was, and then he has his own project now, I think called Tongue Action, and they're based out of Houston. I was just talking to him the other day.
Yeah. I'm familiar with him. I don't know that we've ever met, but I think we're friends on Facebook, and I follow him, and I know he's into the sort of same music that, you know.
He's the one that kind of like sort of steered me towards like writing rock and roll music.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I mean, at the risk of sounding like a douche, I was really like playing a lot of like emo pop music and some of that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I was really into like Saves the Day and that kind of stuff. And then I met Pablo, and then I met him through Ryan Brush. Do you know Ryan Brush? He was a singer for Black Novas.
Okay.
And I guess Pablo. Anyway, so I met him through Ryan Brush, and we just instantly hit it off, and we decided to make a band. And he had, what's that girl's name, dude? Oh my God, what's her name? She's a guitar player. She used to play guitar player in Igniter. Blair?
I want to say Beverly.
Beverly.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Beverly. So it was me, Beverly, Mike Razorwire, and then Pablo Diablo.
Okay.
And then things went sideways. Paul had to go take care of some family stuff in Houston, which made band practice impossible. So I just started another rock and roll band. But he is the one that was like, you like Turbo Negro, right? You like the Bronx. You like this kind of music. You like Drive Like Jehu.
Yeah.
Kind of going towards that type of vibe.
Yeah.
And as soon as he said Drive Like Jehu and Hot Snakes, I was like, oh, yeah, that's not like rock and roll. So I sort of had to unlearn how all the emo pop sensibility I had woven into my existence as a musician.
Yeah.
Which took a while, but with Pablo's help, though, he did help me break through that. And he would say, yeah, that sounds too much like this, and you need to be more rock and roll.
Right.
And I'm like, I fucking grew up on Sabbath, and I grew up on C. Ray Vaughan, and I know who, you know, I knew all the blues, the Clapton, Page, Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
And then he just, for some reason, Pablo was like a good coach to me, kind of like pulled it out of me. And here's the thing, it had always been there. I just ignored it for so long.
Yeah.
And of course I know pentatonic scale back and forth. And
Yeah.
sort of grew from there. And then we made the High Watt Crucifixers band. And I couldn't have thought of or had a better lineup for that band. So everything just sort of fell into place. And next thing you know, we're playing shows at Broken Teeth and World Burns to Death.
Yeah.
And it was fucking so cool, man.
Yeah.
It was a really magical time. And I'm
Yeah.
glad and I saw you at those shows. So
Yeah.
that was cool. It was very validating for me to see you at the gigs.
Well, you know, if especially if you were playing with Broken Teeth, I rarely missed a Broken Teeth gig, so I would see you. And I know Jason used to wear the High Watt T-shirt on stage and stuff, and I just always loved the name, and I was friends with you, so it's like, yeah, of course, you know, go out and support, hang out a little bit.
Jason McMaster, like when I moved here to Austin, I knew where I was moving to because I knew of Agony Column.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in the mid '90s, I was like listening to some college radio station in the middle of the night, and it was called I think it was only on Wednesday or I guess Thursday mornings from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Of course.
And it was this girl called the Maiden of Metal. Maiden of Metal Hours, you know, Metal Morning, whatever.
Yeah.
And she goes, if you could answer this question, I forgot what it was. Something real easy, like who was the first guitar player for, you know, I don't know, whatever. And I called up middle of the night. She's like, yep, you won. It's like, but you got to come get it here, you know, before I leave. And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I jumped on my bike and I rode down to the college radio station. And she goes, well, I told you won something, but this is a big box of stuff here, promos. You could just take whatever you want. And I took a Death record, and then I took Brave Words, Bloody Knuckles, Texas, Agony Column.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't know who Agony Column was, but they quickly became like one of my most favorite. Dude, that was like 91, something like 92 maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
and then later to find out that Beverly had actually done the artwork for the cover, because I guess I guess her and Batlord were kind of like close friends at that time.
Okay.
She told me she did the artwork for that.
Oh,
which
I
was,
didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. And
Yeah.
that totally blew me away. And
It's cool artwork.
I felt like I was coming full circle.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, dude. Playing shows with the Broken Teeth dudes and getting to meet people like you. I knew that you were a writer, and I knew coming here also that Dangerous Toys was a thing.
Yeah.
Also, I knew. I don't know if Ministry were from Austin, but I think Al Jorgensen was from Austin.
He lived here for a while, yeah. I think he technically lived a little outside of Austin. But yeah, he had definitely had a presence in Austin for a number of years. And the band was popular in this area for
You
sure.
yourself have somewhat, in my mind, like especially like when I got into like the rock scene, whenever I would see you around, I would be like, "Oh, this is a legit rock show." Like, "Oh, Metal Dave's here," and I didn't really I wasn't like, I'd see you, we'd have a beer and chit chat for a bit.
Yeah.
But back in those days, I would be like, "Oh my God, Metal Dave's here. He's hanging out with McMaster. This is too much. I can't talk to them at the same time." I would just like watch, and then so me and the High Watt dudes would just sit there and be like, "One day we're gonna play a show with McMaster's band, and then Dave's gonna write about us, and it's gonna be sick." And we were just like so excited to see you out. And a lot of people said a lot of really cool, positive, nice things about you and McMaster as well.
Yeah.
Which I, of course, later found out was true. But I'm not so familiar with all the magazines and articles and blogs and things that you've written for.
Yeah.
So could you kind of like enlighten me about that?
Yeah, I mean, the short version is I'll go back. You were talking about, you were looking forward to playing with Jason one day. and as you know, I'm not a musician, so, but I'm a music freak, And so if you go back to my childhood, I was a massive music fan, fell in love with Kiss, fell in love with Van Halen, AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. It just went from there. And I realized at one point that I'm probably not going to be the guy on stage. So what is it that I can do that would keep me in the loop and be part of the scene? How can I contribute without being an actual musician? And I was, a fan, so I'm collecting all the magazines. And one day it occurred to me, and I still have this magazine. I saved it. It was a knockoff heavy metal, rock and roll, glossy magazine called Metal Shop. And there was a picture of Steven Tyler on the front. And like I said, I was collecting all the magazines, and it occurred to me one day when I'm looking at that particular magazine, I said, somebody's getting paid to write these articles about these bands. Someone's getting paid to take those photos. Someone's getting paid to interview Aerosmith and Kiss and, AC/DC and Van Halen. And all throughout my school career, going back to what used to be called junior high school before it became middle school.
Right.
All my English teachers and history teachers in any class that was writing intensive where you would have to, take a test and provide like an essay answer at the end of the test or whatever. They would always, mention on my paper, or they'd call me aside after class or whatever and say, they'd comment on my writing, compliment me on my writing, and say, "Have you ever thought about, maybe doing something with this? Because you're really good at it as far as the grammar and the language and the storytelling and all this stuff." Mm-hmm. And I had no idea. I thought everybody did this. I thought all the kids were writing this, and they were like, "No, you definitely have a little bit of a talent here." So, in reading all those magazines as a kid, fast forward, and I'm thinking, hey, I've been told I'm a decent writer. I like rock and roll. Maybe I'll write about music since I'm not going to be a guitar player or a singer or whatever.
Yeah.
I just never had the patience to learn an instrument, and I'm kicking myself to this day for that. So I went to school, got a degree in journalism.
You got a degree in journalism.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, that was the way I saw it, that was my ticket. You know, I wanted to be a rock journalist. And if I was going to do it at a professional level and make a career out of it, because all along the way you start seeing, I hung out at record stores, you see the Xeroxed fanzines and you see the stapled together this and that, and I admire the spirit, and I mean, that's great stuff, you know, but I wanted to be in Rolling Stone, you know, I wanted to get a paycheck from this sort of thing.
Big dreams.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I wanted to be the kid in Almost Famous.
Right. You know what, bro?
You know what I
when
mean?
you were saying that actually popped in and out of my head for a brief second, though.
Yeah.
But continue though. This is cool. I didn't know this.
Yeah. So, you know, while I was in college, I went to school here in San Marcos. It used to be called Southwest Texas State. Now it's called Texas State University. But I went there specifically to get a degree in journalism because I wanted to be a writer, and specifically I wanted to be a rock journalist. And while I was there, I started writing I was living in San Antonio at the time, and San Antonio had a little tabloid periodical that came out called the SA News, and it was basically a very small version of what we here in Austin know as the Austin Chronicle. And I reached out to them and I said, hey, I'm interested in writing about bands. I'm in the music scene in San Antonio. I know some bands. I'm a decent writer. And there was a guy named Pat Jones who had a column that was covering basically the scene that I was hanging out in. And he was moving away. And so they needed someone to step in and sort of continue covering that scene. And I was well versed in that scene because I was in that scene. Mm-hmm. So I took over, started writing this column for SA News. And then I'm in college. So at the same time, I'm writing for the campus newspaper. And while I was in college, I started pulling down interviews for the campus newspaper. I was interviewing the Ramones and White Zombie and Faster Pussycat and Dee Snider and L7. And my first big rock star interview was Jake E. Lee when he was with Badlands. And so, yeah, and this is for my campus newspaper. I've got no clout. I can't say, hey, I'm Dave Glessner from Rolling Stone magazine. I can't even say I'm Dave Glessner from the San Antonio Express News.
Did an interview with Jake E. Lee?
In my car.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude! I'm gonna listen to all of Jake E. Lee's stuff now.
This is how green I was.
Yeah.
So I went to the gig. I didn't know anything about.
Moon? Well, yeah. It was after the fact, right?
I knew nothing about proper channels. I didn't know anything about contacting a publicist. You know, I just went to the gig and hung out for hours. I was the guy that as a fan, I always went to venues anyway to catch the bands at sound check because I wanted my album signed and I wanted a photograph and whatnot. So I knew the ropes. I know it's like, yeah, you show up at the venue about 4:00 in the afternoon. If you're willing to hang out for a few hours, you got a pretty good chance of bumping into somebody. So I went to it was Badlands and Bang Tango, and they were playing at a club called Sneakers in San Antonio. I knew Sneakers pretty well. I had that joint cased, you know, so I was like, I know where they load in and load out, and I know where the back door is and all this stuff.
Right on.
So I parked my car back there, and I left it there throughout the gig. And then at the end of the night, I made a beeline out of the front entrance around the building and came back to the back door and waited for Jake to come out. And he came out, and, you know, it's 2 a.m. now, you know. And I corner him, and I say, hey, I'm writing an article for my campus newspaper, and I'd love to, you know, do you mind doing an interview? And he's like, if you can find me a cigarette, I'll do an interview. And so I found him a cigarette, and my car, remember, is parked right behind. And I said, my car is sitting right there. This is how professional I was. Yeah. I did the whole interview on a boom box.
No shit.
I had a big boom box that was in my car. And Jake sits shotgun, and I'm sitting in the driver's seat, and he's smoking the cigarette, and I start rolling tape, and we talked, and that was my first big interview.
That's really cool. Fucking story.
And when he got out of the car, he left mud all over my floorboard, and I didn't vacuum my car for probably
You're like,
3
that's
weeks.
Jake Lee's mud. I don't want to touch that. I'm never going to wash his. I'm never going to wash his hand again.
Yeah. But to answer your question, it started with that. It started with the campus stuff. It started with the local stuff. Then over time, I graduated to the San Antonio Express News. I wrote for them for about 15 years. I was their go-to metal guy. I wrote for Metal Edge Magazine. I wrote for Classic Rock Magazine. I wrote for KNAC.com. I wrote for the Austin American Statesman, Texas Music Magazine, the Houston Press.
Wow.
That's what comes to mind off the top of my head.
That is such a cool story.
We all start somewhere, man.
Well, I mean, instead of and this is what I think. This is what I admire about a lot of people who have found things that they're interested in and they like so much that they want to somehow incorporate it into their life or possibly make a job out of it. I just really admire that type of a drive. And not only that, but from what you said, it just kind of seemed like it all sort of fell into place. Destiny almost, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's
with work.
Yeah.
You had a path.
Yeah.
And you saw it. You went
to
for
take
it.
what you just said one step further. It's the people that, we all have a passion. Mm-hmm. But it's how strongly do you feel about that passion? Are you willing to pursue it? Are you willing to work at it? Are you willing to, and I see it in other the people I admire, that are musicians. Well, you were passionate about rock and roll. You learned how to play guitar, but did you grind it out in a van? Did you do everything it took to get a record deal? When you got that record deal, did you jump through all the hoops? Did you stay away from home? Did you stay on the road? Did you live out of a suitcase? Did you have all the horror stories? Because it's not, the public sees the glamorous side of it, but there's a buttload of not so glamorous stuff that goes into it. I don't, I never had that aspect of it because I wasn't living in a van or whatever, but I did have to take my passion a little, one step further. I had to reach out to editors at publications, and I had to hone my craft as a writer so that people would hire me to do the writing. You know, so it's about finding, not only recognizing your passion, but then if you want to pursue it and take it maybe to another level. I mean, I never got rich off it or anything, but that's not what it's about. It's still not about that. I do it because I love it.
It's part of who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
It defines you, and that's how I think a lot of people know you that way.
Yeah.
It's not like and even like the bigger gigs that you got, it wasn't like somebody just called you. Maybe some people did hand you some gigs, but maybe the ones that you really wanted to, you had to do some legwork. You had to work for it.
I'll tell you the story. What got me into the San Antonio Express News, which, San Antonio, I don't know what its current standing is, but it probably hasn't changed that much. There was a time when it was the 8th largest city in the United States, and it's probably still.
San Antonio?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's probably still, I mean, hell, it might be 5 now, because the growth has been crazy. My point being that it's one of the largest cities within the top 10 to 15, depending on where we stand today in 2021.
Yeah.
It's a major newspaper.
That's really amazing, man.
Yeah, and I grew up in San Antonio, and I remember thinking, I want to write for the San Antonio Express News because that's going to be the next step before I get to Rolling Stone,
right?
which I never got to, by the way. But San Antonio Express News would have been a major score for me. So I was living in Galveston. I graduated from college with a degree in journalism, so now I can say I've got a degree. So now I can go to editors and say, hey, I've got a degree in journalism and I've interviewed this person and that person along the way, and I know my, rock and roll. And
I'm official.
yeah, I'm official. I'm legit. And
Yep.
if you're willing to take a chance, I promise you will have minimal pain editing my copy, which is every editor's dream.
Oh,
That's what they want to hear.
That's definitely a plus right there.
So I'm living in Galveston in, this would have been 92, 93, 94. So it's right when the whole punk rock, pop punk thing is blowing up. Green Day is huge.
Yeah,
Blink
Offspring.
182, Offspring, Rancid, Goldfinger. All these bands are starting to happen. So I went to the San Antonio Express-News and I said, because I'd already interviewed the Ramones a couple times while I was in college, and I said to the editor at the San Antonio Express-News, who I've never written for up to this point, and I said, I'm sure you're paying attention, and there's this whole resurgence in punk rock and pop punk and all this stuff, and I'm guessing you probably know that these bands wouldn't exist if there wasn't the Ramones. What do you think about, what if I get an interview with Joey Ramone and I talk about the difference between punk rock then and punk rock now, and kind of get the godfather of punk rock's perspective on the current wave of what's all over the radio today? And the dude's like, if you can get Joey Ramone to
That's
do an
what
interview.
I'm about to say, bro. I'm looking over your check. Okay. Did you do that?
Yeah, so that's what I did, man.
Bro, that's insane.
And
That's what I want to hear. I want to read that one. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
That sounds fucking cool.
I had a connection to the Ramones publicist because I had reached out. Her name is Ida Langsam, and she's a wonderful human being. I owe her so much. But when I was in college, I was flipping through the back of a CD. He's like, how do I get a hold of the Ramones? I want to interview the Ramones. And I somehow traced down that she was the publicist. I guess that it came to the campus newspaper, the campus radio station in a media kit, with a contact number. So I called her, and I always knew the Ramones kind of had a college audience, so I'm thinking they might be receptive to this. So anyway, I had built a relationship with Ida, which is why I was able to offer the San Antonio. I said, I bet I can get an interview with Joey Ramone if you think this is a story that you would print in the paper. And he goes, well, obviously we've never worked with you before, but your story idea sounds amazing. And if you could get Joey Ramone and send me some clean copy, I'll be into that. And I was like, what's my deadline and what's my word count?
Yeah.
And so he gave it to me, and that was my foot in the door at the San Antonio Express-News. And they actually ran it front page of the entertainment section. They did a whole article just like I pitched. It's like the godfather of punk, Joey Ramone, talks about the Ramones and the bands that are currently riding their coattails, and kind of, his perspective on the current crop of what's being, what's out there being labeled as punk rock.
You picked that lock over there, and you came in swinging, dude. That's what you did. You hit the ground running.
Yeah.
I bet you everybody's mind at that place must have been blown. That's I don't know anybody who's interviewed the Ramones. I've never met, and you're the only person I know that would even be able to do something like that, or could do something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that, but going back to even my college days, the editors at the newspaper, of course, on a campus newspaper, the editors are students just like myself, but they were like, dude, I don't know that we've ever had a band like the Ramones interviewed for the campus newspaper. And they're like, and White Zombie was an upcoming band, and they were barely on MTV, and they were like, how are you getting these people to talk to you for this campus newspaper? And so it was just kind of one of those things where I just pushed and I didn't have to push too hard, because if you're the editor and some kid comes up to you and says, hey, I can get Joey Ramone, then your next thing is, if you can get Joey Ramone, that's great, but this better be some good writing, because I'll believe it when I see it, kind of deal.
You weren't
right?
even nervous about it, were you?
No.
Hell no.
No, I was
Hell no.
gung ho about it. It's
Yeah,
like
you're
this is
in
my
there.
chance to make my mark, man.
Yeah, this
you
is
know?
how you do it. This is the way in.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the way in.
And that led to, I probably wrote for San Antonio for about 15 years. And then again, it's like I started with the guy, once I got the college degree, I could say, hey, I've got a degree in journalism. Then my next step is I've been writing for the San Antonio Express News for 5 years. And now I'm pitching to Metal Edge magazine or something. They're, oh, he's getting published in a legit newspaper and he's been doing this for 5 years. He must be a decent writer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, sure, we'll take a chance. And everybody that was willing to take a chance, I ended up having, a pretty decent working relationship for a number of years.
Dude, that shit is just amazing. Let me get to close that one of these stupid ass. God damn, I hate the Facebook. Everybody hates me on Facebook right now, by the way. I don't even want to talk about it, but actually I do want to talk about it, but we're not going to talk about it. This is all I look at. I look at guitars, dude. All I look at all day is guitars. All I look at is like stuff for my guitar.
Yeah.
Cholo stuff. I look at a lot of cholo stuff. Like I want like this. I'll share this. I'll share this so you can see it. But yeah, like this is a T-shirt I want, dude.
Oh, I have. I
really like that kind of stuff.
You know who has that T-shirt? I have that on a T-shirt, and you know who it was?
Who?
Oh, wait. Southbound Saints.
Southbound Saints. Why does that sound familiar to me?
Because they were basically a band comprised of Houston dudes and Austin dudes. Adam from Crank County Daredevils, Michael Foster from Houston, who used to be in a few bands out of Houston. One I remember was a punk rock band called Tread. Abel from New Disaster was in that band for a minute. Not Tread, Southbound Saints. I have that same design on a T-shirt in my.
That's freaking amazing, dude. Dude, let's talk about Abel for a second and how amazing of a fucking guitar player that dude is.
I've been bragging about him since. I'll tell you. I remember being downtown, Red River scene, hanging out like I always was, and I remember Natchez Taylor had the Natchez Taylor Band, and it was a 3-piece.
Was this before New Disaster?
This was before New Disaster.
Okay.
And he was starting to play Headhunters, and he just released a CD called Barely Legal. And I didn't really know him. And he comes up to me one day and he says, he goes, dude, I'm starting a new band, and I'd love for you to come to our rehearsal place and see what you think. And I'm thinking, okay, I barely know this guy, but he obviously is interested in my opinion, so sure. And he's being, he's totally cool and pleasant and inviting me out to his rehearsal space. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're Natchez Taylor, right? So what's up with the Natchez Taylor Band? He's like, I don't think that's gonna last. I'm gonna put my my time and my effort into this new project. I'm like, okay. So I go to the rehearsal space, and it's New Disaster before they're called New Disaster. They don't even have songs yet.
Was Mark in the band playing bass at that time?
Yeah, Mark and Rob on drums.
Yeah, Mark, Rob.
Abel, and Natchez.
Original lineup.
It's the original lineup.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in this rehearsal space. They don't have a name. They don't have songs. They are literally just finding their way. And I thought, it's interesting that he wanted me to come in, because usually when you ask for someone's opinion, you got your songs together.
Right.
But I was like, he's just inviting me out for a hang, So I go and I'm sitting in this room, and they're kicking some songs around there, typical musicians. Hey, that part where it goes, why don't you do that 3 times and then go into the.
Oh, I know all that.
You know all the language.
Do the blacka, 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 not there, but towards the end on the 3rd time, blacka, 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 and then a couple of blam, plams.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know drums. That's how I talk to drummers.
That's the language of musicians.
So yeah, you're in there.
So
I'm
in
the mix.
there, and I'm watching this go down, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching, but if they pull this together, it's gonna be so freaking good. I could just tell just by the raw bits and pieces, and that's when I saw Abel, just blow my mind. And then of course New Disaster gelled and solidified, and they started playing gigs, and I was like, this guy, and I've said this to his face. He's like, to me, he's the kind of guy that could have auditioned for Ozzy Osbourne and got the gig.
100%.
You know what I mean? And I've told people that
100%.
forever. He's amazing.
I've been playing guitar for a very, very long time, and I have certain guitar heroes in town. Off the top of my head, I could think of my favorite guitar players. And when I first saw Abel play, and I first saw them at Red 7, it was New Jester at Red 7. I forgot who they were playing with. I remember I saw Abel just cut into a lead real quick, and I remember thinking, excuse me, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
He just came out of fucking left field, left-handed guitar player.
Yeah.
Playing this awesome. What was he had?
Explorer.
What was it? It was Explorer, like a Dean Explorer or something.
I think it was a Washburn.
It was a Washburn or something.
Yeah.
And his lead just cut through so well. Every note he hit was like just meticulous. It was perfect. The bends, the expression on his face, his mannerisms, his stage presence, his stance.
Yeah.
Like he had it all.
Yeah.
He still does have it all.
Yeah.
You know, and so he became like a really, I remember I talked to all my friends. I'm like, you got to check out this band, New Disaster. They are the shit, and I'm going to play a show with them one day.
Yeah.
This is when I was at Die Cobra.
Yeah.
So, but Die Cobra never happened, but it became a goal of mine to be like, we got to play with Broken Teeth. We got to play with New Disaster. New Disaster specifically in the very beginning because I just admired Abel as a guitar player so much. And their songs were just so reminiscent of like real raw 80s rock and roll. Talking about like fighting, whiskey, gave me all these ideas. I was enamored with New Disaster, and I never missed a show.
Yeah.
I don't think I missed a show.
I was the same way. They were one of those bands that to me was king. They, there was a handful of kings on Red River, and Broken Teeth was one of them, and New Disaster was definitely one of them.
Dude, we're going to listen to a little bit of New Disaster just right now, and hopefully it doesn't get taken. But just because, even hearing it, even hearing the songs, just how rad they are. Like this one right here, dude, like, I don't know. They're all great. This one. You already know, dude.
Yeah.
It's like you hear this shit, it's just like, oh my God, I gotta go to the bar.
Yeah.
I need 2 Lone Stars. I need a shot of whiskey. I need to get back up to the front of the stage.
I'm back at Headhunters right now.
Oh yeah, I'm at Red Eyed Fly right now, dude. Swear to God, listen. Here we go.
She's my God. She's my best. To keep around on my head.
Fuck yeah, Natch it. You were the shit. This is classic.
Whole band.
The whole Red River.
The whole band.
Dude, the whole band was
The
awesome.
whole band was amazing.
It was like such a magical time between like 2000 and I would say 2007 to maybe 2011, 2012. Red River was like my home.
Yeah.
I just lived there. I went to every single gig, and then all these bands started sprouting up. High Watt Crucifix was born out of this sound. Like when you hear this, I was just like, how do I sound like this?
Yeah.
And of course, we kind of did New Disaster. You got to check them out. They're on iTunes and all that shit. New Disaster.
Yeah.
It's amazing music. Last Night Rights.
Yeah.
That's the name
They
of
have
the
another album called Automatic that came out after that one.
Yeah.
And, you were talking about Abel. It's like after I was in that rehearsal space and seeing the bits and pieces, and then the band solidified, and I'd go see them, and, we became friends, and I was writing about them locally in some, I think, Rank and Review and some of the local publications or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to Abel one day. You touched on something earlier where you said his playing style was really meticulous. And, I mean, he's got speed, but he's very clear and, like you said, meticulous, and you hear every note. And he told me that his guitar heroes, and this is going to make perfect sense in about 10 seconds, his guitar heroes were Jakey Lee and Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden.
Oh, yeah, dude.
And I was like, anybody...
I could see that.
I could see somebody putting the finger on Jakey Lee, but any guitar player that says Adrian Smith... I love you, man.
Yeah.
That means you've done your homework because he's not an obvious choice. But if you know him and you know the playing that goes into Iron Maiden and you know what I mean?
I had read this interview with Adrian Smith because if we're gonna go down that route with Adrian Smith a little bit, so he was my favorite guitar player. Dave Murray, obviously, amazing. I had read this, excuse me, I had read this interview with Adrian Smith, and they're talking about his guitar playing and your leads and what do you do? Because at one point in my life, I was just really obsessed with how did you do that lead? Was that just off the cuff? Did you map that out? How long did you work on it?
Yeah.
What strings do you use? Okay, what kind of guitar pedal? Did you plug straight in? I have all these questions, and Adrian Smith said in the interview, and I don't know it verbatim, but it was more to the less of the effect of, he's like, I usually sit around and I map out my lead for at least a week or two till I find something I'm happy with. Dave Murray would go in there and just do it, and not ever he'll do a couple of runs, and out of the couple of runs in the lead, they'll pick one that sounds good. Yeah. But here's Adrian Smith over here, just doing his homework, mapping it out, getting the tone. He's, you know what I mean? So what I noticed about Abel is whenever I went to go see him play, very rarely would he ever stray off the path of the guitar lead that he was doing, and I can tell that he spent a lot of time mapping that out. And as a musician and guitar player, and someone who appreciates great guitar playing, I just completely was drawn to that, and I just respected it. Abel, I love you, man. You are rock fucking god to me.
Yeah, and, agreed. I second
Abel.
that.
What other cool rock bands that you used to hang out with around those times, when you used to hang out on Red River, the Red River golden days?
I was also a big fan of Gentlemen's Social Club.
Oh, dude, that's Billy Chainsaw's in there, right?
Yeah, Billy Chainsaw, Eric Larson, Pat Idle, the singer, Paul Slees was the drummer, and their second guitar player kind of turned over a lot. But when they did the album with a guy named Brian Spainhour, and they came along a little bit later, Broken Teeth and New Disaster were kind of ruling the roost a little bit.
100%.
And then GSC came along, and by the time they came along, I was friends with all those guys. So I didn't just stumble on them. They were my buddies, and they formed this band, and so of course I'm gonna, I'm hearing tracks, and I'm gonna go see them live, and they were great. They totally embodied and encapsulated that whole, Pat Idle is the man. He's the guy. That guy, dude. He's about. Oh my God. I always freaked out because he's probably about 15 years younger than me, and oh my God, he's a freaking encyclopedia about stuff that I should know more about than he does. You know who his favorite singer in the whole world is?
Who?
Peter Wolf from the Jay Giles Band.
What?
Yeah. What guy 15 years younger than me even knows who the Jay Giles Band is, and let alone can name the singer?
I can't even think of a song right now. That's
Peter
so
Wolf.
Out of left field for me.
Well, see, the songs you would think of are not the ones he's talking about.
Right.
He's going deeper than that. You know what I mean?
B-sides
or
something.
Yeah, or the albums before they were commercially a popular band, you know? And this is the stuff that was commercially popular when I was a kid. So
okay, all right. So I got to make some notes here.
He's deep, man.
Jay Giles Band, I need to listen to.
Jay Giles Band, and if Pat ends up watching this podcast, he should leave you some titles in the comments section because he knows the Jay Giles Band inside out. And you know who another guy that he absolutely loves is Southside Johnny from Southside Johnny and the Jukes, which was a band that was kind of a bar band in the New Jersey area around the same time as Bruce Springsteen, but they were a little more rough and tumble. And Pat Idle just loves all that stuff.
Cool, man.
So GSC, Gentlemen's Social Club, sort of encapsulated the whole. They had this real glam, dirty, sleazy kind of vibe, like a Johnny Thunders or New York Dolls or Hanoi Rocks, but then they also had this sort of rootsy kind of thing that was, all that rootsy stuff can almost, there's always a line that feeds back to the Stones, you know. But then in Pat's case, there was stuff like Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes and Peter Wolf and the Jay Giles Band, and you know, just he's really deep, man. And GFC was a great. They visually they were great. They all looked cool. They had the vibe. They were just
they
raunchy.
were really, really cool. That's actually that from that band. That's when I met Billy Chainsaw, and then I later found out, and I didn't know this at the time, that he was in Agony Column.
Yeah, he sure was.
He was in Agony Column. So
he's been around forever, dude.
So when I started hanging out with the rock scene in Austin, I just sort of felt like a lot of things were, for me musically, were just coming full circle, and I just started focusing a lot on that. But you know, meeting him was also like another, a pinch me moment. I'm like, you know, it's Billy Chainsaw from Agony Column. You know what I mean? I'd be very excited about that. We actually got to play. High Wild Crucifixers played a couple of shows with Gentleman Social Club back in the day.
You guys ended up playing with like all the great bands sooner or later.
Well, we had I was very happy with the band with the High Wild Crucifixers, but you know what really meant a lot to me was going back to New Disaster. Like, these guys wanted to like start asking us to play shows with them, and that to me was very validating. And then it became even more validating when we started getting offered gigs to play with Gentleman Social Club and Bear County Bastards and Oklahomos and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, are we part of it now? Yeah. And then eventually, you know, ran into McMaster, and McMaster came up to me at Red Eye Fly one time. He's like, hey man, your band's pretty intense. and he's like, and I dig it, man. And that was it. And I was like, thank you, Mr. McMaster. And I forgot who he was playing with. I think we were all there to I think we were opening up for it wasn't Sad Wings, but that would have been dope. I forgot who that was, but he was at the gig. And then he offered to play us to open up for them at for Broken Teeth at Emo's. Hello? I would just like to make a correction. It was not McMaster who asked High Wild Crucifixers to play a show with them. It was High Wild Crucifixers who asked them to play a show with us. McMaster, please forgive me. Please show mercy. Pastor McMaster, you rule, and I love you. Continue on with the podcast. Bye. So, everybody in the band was like, we're going to play with Broken Teeth at Emo's. We need to bring it. We have to do the best we can. It's Jason McMaster. It's Broken Teeth. All of their people are going to be there expecting a kick-ass rock show. Yeah. And they gave us main support, dude. Yeah. And we're just like, we really have to be, what do we do? What could we do on our gig to make sure we drive all the nails in and hit every moment, right, just to capture the crowd, because this is Broken Teeth's crowd. Yeah, we need to bring it. They're expecting real rock and roll. Yeah. So we all decided that we were going to cover Painkiller from Judas Priest. Oh, nice. so we're like, okay, well, if we cover Painkiller and we pull it off, that's definitely rite of passage. We are in now. Yeah. And then so we told McMaster, and then he's like, oh, that's a great. I'm like, dude, do you want to sing it? Do you want to sing it for us?
Did he come up and sing?
Dude, he came up and he sang Painkiller. Nice. We played the music. Yeah. And then he had, you know how he has like his own little personal monitor up there, because Broken Teeth was going to play after us anyways. Yeah. So he went up there, and I remember looking at my band and looking at the crowd and seeing McMaster right there, just like looking down and getting his stuff ready. Yeah. And I was like, I'm on stage with Jason McMaster right now. This is fucking amazing, dude. And then we did the cover.
Yeah.
We played it. It's recorded by two different, shitty cell phones back in those days. It didn't really sound very good, but he pulled it off, and we knew that he had sang for the priest, the Judas Priest tribute band, Sad Wings, which I've seen many times.
Yeah, they're great.
And when that show was over, dude, I just remember I was completely 100% like, that's it. We've made it. We are badass. We're not imagining this.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, like you said, it really wasn't about, for me, from then until now, and probably forevermore, being a musician or a rock guy, rock dude, as long as I'm doing what I love, and it wasn't about the money or anything like that. It's just about my heroes giving me a nod.
Yeah.
And it just really felt good. I felt validated. I felt like I'm respected by Jason McMaster. That's awesome. So it meant a lot to me. It was a very, very special moment.
I totally understand that. In the world of writers, that pool is a little, it's not as big. And so, I love it when somebody reads an article as a reader, something that I've written, and they go, dude, I got something out of that, or that was really entertaining, or the way you put it was great. But when a fellow writer comes along and says, dude, and that's, like you said, very validating. And, I've been lucky enough to have a few people that I admire and respect in the journalism world, specifically the rock journalism world, say things or comment on things that I've written, and it just, it touches your heart, man. You're like, oh my God, they know who I am. They know I exist.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in college, when I was a kid, Hit Parader was one of the big rock magazines that you read. And there was, how did I find out about this? There was a woman who was a writer at Hit Parader magazine. She might have even been like a managing editor higher up the chain than just a writer. Her name was Ann Layton, and we're friends to this day on Facebook, and I'll never forget her for this. She's the first person that I remember believing in me, and she said she was an established writer, so somebody was picking her brain on who's out there, who's up and coming, that, you've got your eye on, that you think is, and she said, there's this guy out of Texas. There's this dude out of Texas named David Glessner, and I think he's got the goods. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is somebody who I followed in Hit Parader magazine. She even knew who I was. She knew my name. She knew where I lived. She knew where I was from. And that blew me away. So when you get on stage and McMaster gets on stage and he belts one out with you and you go, oh my God, he knows I'm alive.
Yeah.
I totally get it,
It was just like, it was that was definitely, and like you were saying, there's been other moments in my life where I've been picked to do certain things with certain musicians.
Yeah.
Where I'm going, how did I end up here? And these guys like me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like, like I don't want to get into it too much, but like when I got tapped to go work for SLAYER.
I want to get into that because, I know this is your show, but I wasn't going to walk away without finding out how that came about because I think that's amazing. And so did you guitar tech for SLAYER, or what was your job and how did you get the gig?
Okay, so I worked for, that band AWOL Nation?
What are they called?
AWOL Nation. AWOL Nation.
No, I don't.
Some Los Angeles band. Not really my stuff, but they hired me a few times for some guitar gigs. I got the gigs through a friend of mine named Eric Singer, who had played bass for this band called Sparta out of El Paso.
Yeah.
And also he himself was a guitar dude, and he was working for this band called Train. So whatever gigs that he wasn't able to do, he would just get me to do them.
Okay.
I ended up working for the band here in Austin, and you'll know us by the Trail of Dead.
Yeah.
I worked for them, I don't know, 12,
Wow, right?
10, 11 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But so in 2012, I was working at General Motors. In 2011, 2 of my family members had passed, so I had taken all my time off to go to California for what's that called, bereavement? Or,
Yeah.
So I had used all my time for bereavement. I was a team leader over there and all this stuff. And so that was like my day job. I was just doing these guitar tech gigs like in the evenings and going to work like really tired the next day. And I'm over here on North Loop right there next to the parlor, having some beers. And I get a phone call from Frenchie Smith, Chris Smith, who owns owns the Bubble.
Yeah.
And he I see on my phone, my flip phone.
Yeah.
I go out to the front. I gotta walk out to the sidewalk, and I got a pretty good buzz on me. And I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, Frenchie? How are you?" And he goes, "Do you want to work for Slayer?" And then I was like, "Yeah, dude, I want to work for Slayer." Slayer, yeah, dude, sure. When are they coming over? Like, and then like I cracked a joke because I didn't think he was serious. And he goes, "I need to know in 10 fucking seconds if you want to work for Slayer." And I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden, just like, I was buzzed, you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, like, I try to gather I was like, Slayer? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What am I doing? He goes, "You'll be contacted tomorrow by Dino Paredes."
Okay.
I'm like, "Who's Dino Paredes?" Paredes? I guess he's like either the I think he's the vice president of American Records.
Okay. Yeah.
So I get a phone call from him, and he goes, "Hey, Rich, so Frenchie told us X, Y, and Z, and so Tom Araya has some medical issues right now. He needs to take some time off. He can't be traveling around a lot. He lives near Austin, so we're cutting some guitar leads, and Kerry King's guitar tech isn't available right now. So we need somebody to sit in for him. Are you available? This gig starts next week." And excuse me. And then I was like, immediately I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Count me in. I'm in.
Yeah.
The very next day, I think I got that. That was on a Thursday. Night. The gig was supposed to start Tuesday.
Yeah.
So the very next day, Friday, I go to HR, and I was like, I have to take all of next week off. And then they go,
I'm going to work for Slayer.
She goes, "Well, that's what the HR lady said, dude." The HR lady, I mean, she's like older woman, and she goes, and I, understand I had been working for General Motors like 8 or 9 years at that time.
Yeah.
And like I'm saying, I'm running a team, I'm doing training and all this stuff, and she goes, "Well, Rich, it looks here like you've used all your bereavement, and you're not your vacation has not come up yet.
Yeah.
And we don't have anybody to cover you. And if you miss any days, really, it's gonna go against your next promotion." And I said, "I'm working for Slayer next week." And then she goes, "Really? You're working for Slayer?" So she's like, she knew. Even she knew.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I'd like to give you guys at least a 2-week notice so I could come back and get my job. Can we do that?" She goes, "Well, Rich, if you got to work for them on Tuesday, that gives us 2 days notice.
Yeah.
And if you do this, you can't come back."
Yeah.
And then I said, "Well, here's my 2-day notice," because I had written a 2-week notice.
Yeah. Crossed
I'm
out
like,
week.
"Here's the 2-day notice." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, but I cannot pass this up.
Yeah.
I cannot pass working for Slayer. I don't know anybody in their right mind who would pass up working for Slayer."
Yeah.
So it was like in a studio environment. So like close and personal. We're not playing gigs. We're just all working together.
Yeah.
So she goes, "Well, Rich, I definitely, I understand." I understand it's Slayer. I understand that, but you can't get your job back. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I guess that's it. I'm out of here. So
Yeah.
I went back to my team and I told my team members, like, my people working under me. And I was like, hey guys, Tuesday's my last day. Why? And I was like, I gotta go work for Slayer. And they were like, oh my God, so dope. So they were all like excited about it.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so that whole weekend, I'm doing all this research on Slayer. I'm like, what kind of strings does he use? I need to study the tremolo bridge. Everything about Slayer I need to digest within 3 days.
Yeah.
Right. So I find out in my research that Kerry King's guitar tech is a guy named Armand who had been working for Kerry 10 years prior to that. I guess he had some kind of accident and he died.
Oh, wow.
So the dude died. So that explains why they would need a guitar tech. And Frenchie was cool enough to call and offer me the gig, which was strange to me because Frenchie doesn't really strike me as a metal dude.
Yeah.
Whereas me, like, I know all the metal stuff, you know what I mean? Not all of it, but I
Yeah.
know a fair amount.
Yeah.
And so Frenchie takes me to Fifth Street Studios, which is right downtown, like on Fifth Street in Lamar, kitty cat corner across from Whole Foods. Tucked away in this warehouse, there's this badass recording studio.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I talked to Frenchie that day, and he shows me, he's like, all right, here's what the cabs are, here's this, that, and I have all my tools with me. And he's like, so this is what they're going to be using. I'm like, and the first thing I noticed was Mesa Boogie cabinets. There was 2 Mesa Boogie cabinets, and there was 2 Bogner cabinets. And I told Frenchie, I'm like, he's not using these, right? Because everybody knows Kerry King sponsored by Marshall.
Yeah.
Kerry King sponsored by Marshall. He's not going to play anything else.
Right.
And he goes, no, this is like, these are perfect, the highest end mesas, and there's amazing, it's going to sound great. And I talked to Gordon. So Greg Gordon was the producer that did the last Slayer album. So Greg shows up. I meet Greg. I'm like, hey, what's up? My name is, Rich Mendez. I'm going to be helping. I'm teching for Kerry. He's like, all right, let's go back, take a look real quick. Let's get some sounds. And when we were back there, I told Greg, I was like, I don't think Kerry's going to play these. Is he bringing his cabinet? And he goes, no, Kerry's stuff is all right there. So there was like, Kerry had brought his original 80s Marshall 100 watt 800. And then there was another one of just like his signature model Marshall that he had. So I set both those up on the Bogners, and I was going, okay, I guess this is how they do it in recording.
Yeah.
As far as I know, So I'm sitting there, I'm getting everything ready. We're getting the sounds. Kerry King's guitars, he's got like 5 of them. They're all set up, and I'm like, have to get them, put them on, and they're super low, and I'm just like tuning them, making sure I'm cleaning them. I'm making sure the picks we're all good to go.
Yeah.
We're getting good solid signal, and then Dino shows up. And Dino's like, oh, hey, Rich, thanks for, blah, blah, blah. Thanks, awesome to have you on board. Kerry's going to be here in about 15 minutes. So when he gets here, just say, hey, what's up? But he's kind of busy. So, he'll let you know what he needs.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then Dino's on the phone, and he's like, oh, yeah. Just go. Okay, I know where you are. Just drive straight. Do your first left. You're going to see my car there, and just park next to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Kerry King was here. So I'm trying to be pro as possible.
Yeah.
Pro as possible. And next thing you know, Kerry King walks in with fucking Tom Araya. I didn't know Tom was going to be there.
Oh, wow.
So Tom Araya walks in, Kerry King walks in. Tom Araya looks at me, and he goes, and he just like laughs and goes, what's up, dude? And then I was like, I'm like, hey, I'm still trying to be pro. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? My name's Rich. I'm going to be helping you all today. Let me know anything you need. I brought some food and snacks and everything you need. Just let me know anything you need.
Yeah.
And then Kerry's like, walks in with me. He walks in there, and he goes, hey, what's up, Kerry? I'm like, my name is Rich. Good to meet you. Let me know if there's anything you need. let me show you Guitar World real quick. So we walk into the studio. I'm like, here's the guitars. I got them all tuned and they're all ready to go. If there's anything you need, let me know. And then he's just like, okay. So I walk back into the booth with Greg. With Greg. Dino and Tom and Carrie go into like the actual recording room, and all I hear Carrie saying, "Whose fucking stupid idea was it to bring these fucking things here?" This is a real story. Carrie, I hear Carrie go, "Whose fucking stupid idea was it to bring these things here?"
Oh, wow.
He walks out and looks at me. He's like, "Did you bring these things here?" This is all within like the first minute of meeting Carrie King. And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I'm not playing with those fucking things." And then
and you told him.
Dino comes in and he goes, Who brought the mesas?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to throw French under the bus. I'm like, they were here when I got here. I'm not sure. I'm like, but there's some Bogners in there. And Carrie goes, "Do I fucking play Bogner?" I'm like, "No, you don't." He goes, "Well, I need I'm not playing through anything else other than a Marshall. I need a fucking Marshall cabinet now."
Yeah.
And I was like, and he looks at me and goes, "You got a Marshall?" I'm like, "You fucking know I do." I didn't cuss at him though. I'm like, "You know I do." He goes, "Go get it. We ain't fucking doing shit till there's a Marshall in here. And get these cabinets out of the building. I don't want these in the building."
Wow.
So Carrie takes off pissed. Greg Gordon looks over at Dino and goes, "What's going on?" And Dino goes, "Oh, well, Dave Mustain's got this deal with Mesa right now. And so it's kind of like not really a thing that I guess we want right now." And so I was like,
and you called this from the get-go.
I called it from the get-go.
Yeah,
I'm like, I know he's not going to play those. I didn't even think about the Dave Mustaine thing.
Right.
So they made me wheel these cabinets out, and Carrie's was like, "I want them out of the building. I don't want them in the building, but we can't just put them out in the street." Right. So I had to cover them up with blankets, stuff them in the back corner of this giant warehouse, put a bunch of stuff in front of them, got in my truck, drove, by this time it's like noon, driving through traffic, go to Music Lab. I grabbed my cabinet, put the cabinet in the back in that Music Lab. I'm like, "You'll never fucking guess who this cabinet's for." And I'm telling everybody at Music Lab.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't say it right now because that was like the condition.
Yeah.
I can't say who I'm working with right now until Slayer is gone.
Yeah.
So I bring my cabinet, and then it turns out that they were Carrie King was cutting leads for 2 songs off of the latest album that came out 2016, 2015. And the song's called Implode, and there's a song called Chasing Death. So he was cutting guitar leads, and basically my job was this, like pretend like I'm Carrie King. So we're sitting in the studio, and Carrie King's like all doing all the leads, and then he would just hand me his guitar.
Yeah.
My job was to keep the guitar body temperature. Was to keep it body temperature so it's not cold when I give it back to Carrie King.
Oh, wow.
So he's like cutting these leads through this cabinet right here, my Marshall cabinet.
Oh, man.
I had to take pictures. I'm like, no one's gonna believe this shit.
Yeah.
So it's all mic'd up. So 2 of the guitar leads on Slayer's most recent album.
Is this the Repentless record?
Repentless, yeah.
Okay.
So Chasing Death and Implode, those 2 guitar leads were cut on that cabinet right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it's basically me, Tom Araya, Carrie King, Dino Predis, and Greg Gordon sitting in a recording studio, doing some vocals. I think Tom did some vocals. I don't think they were take vocals, but I think whatever. But it turns out that Tom had some medical things he needed to take some time off, which explained why they had to do the thing there in Austin. So at the end of it all, Carrie King comes up to me. We do the whole thing. We're all getting along. It's amazing, right? Carrie King's joking around with me. Tom Araya is just like, "You know where to get weed." It's like everything was fucking cool, right?
Yeah.
Greg Gordon's like, "I've been sober for like 30 years." And like we're all like getting to know each other. Dino Paredes takes a picture of me doing guitar check with Carrie. I'll put the photo up on the thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a dream come true.
Yeah.
So Kerry King comes up to me on the last day, and he goes, "Hey man, I heard you quit your job for this shit. What are you, fucking crazy?" And then I was like, you know what, man? I've been listening to Slayer since 5th grade, and Slayer's done more for my life than any job I could ever have has ever done for me.
Good answer.
And he goes,
Wow.
well, you're still fucking crazy, man, but you did a great job. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate you. And the only thing that he did that kind of made me feel was like he came up to me with the Slayer CD, and he's like signed it, and he gave it to me, and gave me some guitar picks, because I was like, well, we're working. I'm not like don't treat me like a fan.
Yeah.
You know, but it was all good.
Yeah.
It was no big deal.
Yeah.
But I always remember, like, after I left, I was like, well, that's cool. The last day of recording, we were basically just packing gear up. And I told Dino, and I'm like, hey, Dino, so my friend works across the street at Whole Foods. And he is like the biggest Slayer fan. Is there any way I could go over there and grab him to come over here to meet the guys real quick?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, let me talk to the guys. About 15 minutes later, he comes back and he goes, yeah, it's got to be quick though. And I'm like, I'll be right back. I fucking ran across to Whole Foods. And my friend's working there. And I'll put his picture up too. My friend's working there, and he has got like a chef hat on. He's like working the pizza thing. It's like lunchtime, and I'm like, hey, I need you right now. Do you want to have a once in a lifetime moment?
Yeah.
And he goes, because he knew I worked with bands, and he's like, his name was Tristan Spears. Oh, yeah. And then he goes, dude, I'm working right now. I can't go anywhere. I'm like, I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you want to have a once in a lifetime experience now?
Yeah.
He goes, whoa, who's here? Who is it? What is it? Are they in the parking lot? Who are they? What band? What band? And I'm like, I can't tell you, but you need to come with me now. And he goes, oh, fuck. He's like, I can't, dude. I can't. I'm like, all right, dude. I tried. And I'm walking through the parking lot. I'm right there about to cross the street. I'm at the corner, cross the street to go across Lamar. And then halfway I hear, Rich, wait, man. He's like running. He's running through the parking lot, like taking off his apron. He's like, dude, this better be fucking worth it. I'm like, you're going to fucking freak out.
Yeah.
You're going to freak out. He's like, tell me what it is. We walk over there, and we're just chilling there. Everything's packed up, and he's looking at the cases. He goes, you're fucking kidding me. I'm like,
they got the Slayer stencil on
yeah, they
them.
got the Slayer stencils on the flight cases. And then here comes Kerry King out, and Kerry King goes, what's up, dude? Kerry King. And Tristan's like, looks at me, goes, are you fucking kidding me? And then Tom Araya comes out. And then Tristan's like, oh my God. And I'm like, calm down. These guys are cool. Hey, I was like, Kerry, Tom, this is one of my good friends over here. He does a lot of music stuff here, and he's like a really cool promoter, and he's just all around good guy. And then Kerry said something like, oh, we only hang out with good guys, man. Rich is awesome. Blah, blah, blah. And so we took pictures.
Yeah.
So he got his picture.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
And then they cut me a big fat check, and that was it. And then we stayed in touch for a few years after that. I haven't talked to those guys in probably, and when I say those guys, I mean like Greg Gordon or Dino Perez, probably in about 2 years. I haven't talked to them really.
Okay.
I'll send them like a Happy New Year's or something like that, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But really nice dudes. They were just so ridiculously cool and nice.
That's awesome.
After that first day, and I think it's, whatever reasons why, but it really made me go, are these guys successful because they're happy ass dudes, or are they happy ass dudes because they're successful?
Yeah.
And I remember I asked Greg that, and he looks at me and he goes, you got this gig because because Frenchie said you were a cool dude. Nobody wants to work with an asshole. Doesn't matter how good you are.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work with an asshole.
Right.
So that's why you're here.
Wow.
And I was like, ah.
Wow.
And then so basically, like, you know, Slayer left and we said goodbye and all that stuff. And I got home and I posted it on Facebook. I'm like, you're not gonna believe it, dude. They wanted pizza. I went to Home Slice Pizza and I told my friends, I'm like, dude, this pizza's for Slayer. So they made pizza and they put like pepperoni in like fucking.
I saw that.
Yeah, they put the pepperoni in like a pentagram.
Pentagram pepperoni.
Yeah, and fucking Kerry King loved it. He goes, oh my God, this is amazing. I could only have one slice, so this shit's fattening, but man. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and what they mainly ate the entire time that they were there was dried mango. Lots of dried mango, coconut juice, no sodas, no alcohol, water.
Wow.
That's all. And that was pretty much it. Coolest dudes ever.
Wow.
Dino, if you watch this, you probably won't. I'll send it to you. Thank you so much for being so fucking cool to me and allowing my friend Tristan to come out and hang out with the guys. And hopefully one day I'll get to run into you again. And just thank you for everything. You're such a cool ass dude. These dudes are genuinely nice ass, wonderful people.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome. That
yeah,
you had that
it was a
experience,
plunk
man.
plunk.
Sure, yeah.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then they used my cabinet to boot.
That's amazing.
So
dude.
that was a really cool.
I'll never look
moment.
at that album cover or listen to that album the same way again.
Yeah, it's that's probably as detailed as I could. I've ever told that story. It's about as detailed as I've ever gotten, and
That's
I know
a great story, man.
Yeah, that is.
That's better than anything I spit out today.
No, man. Well, I mean, but what I'm saying though is like you've got. I guess the point of the story is, I wouldn't have been in the position to do the job if I didn't have the right type of energy, the right type of attitude,
Sure.
and the drive that I had.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like Slayer called me up. It was like, you know, because I never complain. I never complain. I never feel like I'm owed anything. I never feel like I got cheated in life or anything like that.
Yeah.
Even lots of shitty things have happened to me. I never ever for once felt like, why is this happening to me? I'm being cheated. I'm owed something.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever given me something and I'm like, good, I deserve this gig or
Yeah.
good, you know?
You're just grateful.
Right. All the
Yeah.
time. All the time.
Yeah.
And at that time, it wasn't like Slayer had called me up and was like, hey, Rich, what's up? We heard you've been pissed and upset that your career has been shit, so let's go ahead and give you a gig.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So then afterwards I realized I got the gig because I was a happy person and people dig me.
Yeah.
You know, except for today on Facebook, people are pissed. They'll get over it though. Because, you know, it's one thing on shit. People say shit online all the time and I fuck around and I troll sometimes. But, you know, when you see people in person, it's always handshakes and hugs and what's up? You want a beer?
Yeah.
You know, all that shit just dissipates.
Yeah.
Online, Facebook's very toxic anyway. So.
Yeah.
But anyways, man.
Well, that's a great story.
I'm
man.
glad that you like that.
I always wanted to know because I've seen the pictures of you with Slayer, I knew you were working with them in some sort of professional capacity. It wasn't just a fanboy photo where you were, you know, hanging around the venue and caught them at sound check. I could tell you were in close quarters working with them. You were being hired to do a gig. You know. And I wanted to know how that happened because that's
Frenchie Smith helped. Frenchie Smith in the Bubble here in Austin helped me with that gig. So thank you so much, Frenchie, for helping me with that. And you know, I'm sure that you have a lot of stories like that. I've seen pictures of you hanging out with all kinds of amazing, awesome people, man. And I often wondered, you know, like in the early days, like when I would see pictures of you, I'm like, how does he do that? And then somebody finally told me one day, oh, he's a writer.
Yeah.
He's a writer and he gets to interview all these awesome people.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, that's cool. So, and it's really cool to hear the story that you just found something in life that you were good at.
Yeah.
And then you went ahead and pursued it. You had a path. You went for it. Some people helped you along the way. And that's only because you are the cool person that you are.
You know, you try to, just like you with the Slayer thing, you know, if you have a reputation as being easy to work with and professional and chill and not high maintenance and not a jerk, and hopefully one day that all comes around and things come your way.
I got a lot of work from other bands after that Slayer gig.
I
That's
bet.
for sure.
See,
you know?
that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But I started getting jobs because the previous step was a step, and then the next step was another step, and then you get to approach the third step by saying, "Hey, I just did these two steps," and they go, "Well, you got to be, pretty good to do those two steps." So, all right, we'll take a chance on you.
Yeah.
You're approaching us the right way. You seem to be okay, and if you're not, we'll find out.
Yeah, Trail of Dead, that band, Trail of Dead, friends of mine.
Yeah.
They ended up taking me around the world a couple of times, 4 times. We've been all over everywhere, and then I made my own band, and then to boot, Jason Reese from Trail of Dead, he offered to play drums in my band. So here I have other close friends of mine who I love and I respect as musicians as well as people. Another cosign.
Yeah.
Like drummer from Trail of Dead wants to play in my band. That's fucking cool. And I'm not kissing his ass or anything, but I love Jason Reese and I love Conrad Keeley. Conrad Keeley did all the artwork for my record.
Yeah.
Him and I have collaborated on a lot of different types of music together. He's one of my we're like family now, basically.
Do you know who's a huge fan of that band? Do you know Ginger Wildheart?
No.
Ginger is he fronts a band from England called the Wild Hearts, and his stage name is Ginger Wildheart, kind of like the Ramones thing. And I got to know him. I met him at South by Southwest because of a friend of mine, a guy from England who knew me. He followed my articles in Metal Edge magazine. He comes to England he comes to Texas from England for South by Southwest. He tracks me down. He's like, hey, his name is Stephen Blackmore. And he basically wanted to meet me because he read all my articles in Metal Edge, and he knew I was based out of Austin. He's in Austin. He's tracked this guy down.
Yeah.
So he tracks me down. We hit it off, and then we're friends to this day. But he starts turning me on to all these bands that are kind of popular in Britain that haven't quite translated to America. And the Wild Hearts are one of them. And if you ask guys like the Dragons and the Street Walking Cheetahs, they're all into the Wild Hearts.
I gotta write this down.
Yeah, they're I would kind of describe them as sort of heavily influenced by Cheap Trick and the Ramones.
Cool.
And Ginger's the front man. And another crazy story. He was in Texas recording his first solo album at Willie Nelson's studio. And he and I had met at South by Southwest because Stephen Blackmore told me I need to check out this band, and we met him after his show, and we traded phone numbers, emails, or whatever. And I get a call one day out of the friggin' blue, and it's Ginger. And he's like, hey, mate, I'm in Texas. I'm at Willie Nelson's studio. And, the whole British accent thing. And he's like, how far? Do you know where the studio is? And I'm like, I've never been there, but I've heard of it. I know. Yeah, exactly.
Arlen Studios.
And I said, and he goes, well, I'm here for a few days recording this record. And if you want to come down and hang out, come on down and hang out. And at that point, this was my foot in the door at Classic Rock magazine. If you're familiar with it, it's based out of it's a great magazine.
They gave us a write-up in How About Christmas?
See, there you go.
Rock.
Okay.
Yeah, continue.
So I reach out to Classic Rock magazine, and I know they just worship the ground that Ginger walks on. And I said, hey, you don't know me, but I'm a journalist. I've written for this magazine, that magazine, whatever. I just got a phone call from Ginger, and he's basically in my backyard recording his first studio album, or his first solo album. What would you think if I went to the studio and interviewed him as he's making his first solo album and give you an exclusive?
Nice.
And they were like, oh my God, if you can make that happen, because they love Ginger Wildheart over in the UK.
Cool.
So I go to Arlen Studios, I hang out with Ginger, we do the interview. I actually ended up on the album.
Nice.
Yeah.
Isn't that place amazing?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Arslan Studios is
So
amazing.
we're doing the interview, and Ginger goes, "Do you know how to play piano?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And he goes, "Because my piano player flaked, and he's not going to be here today, and I need somebody to play piano on this one song." And I'm like, "Oh, damn, I don't know how to play piano." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "But I can't let you leave here without recording something," because he's like listening to my voice as we're talking. He goes, I need to get that voice on tape.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Dude, you've just got this, it's almost terrifying."
It's like smoldering.
Yeah. And I'm like, I guess that's a compliment. Okay, well, what do you have in mind? And he goes, "Well, I have this song, and I don't have it figured out yet, but what I want is sort of a spoken word outro at the end of the song, where your voice is just kind of, and then right at the end, I want some sort of snappy punchline, like the Bon Scott at the end of what is it? Is it Night Prowler? When he goes, was it Night Prowler? When he goes, "Shalbat, nanu nanu," and it's like, it's the last thing you're expecting after such a creepy song, right? It's this big creepy song with this big scary build up, and then it's just very menacing, and then right at the end you hear, "Shazbot, nanu nanu," and that, Ginger wants something like that.
Yeah.
So we're doing the thing. So he writes down some stuff on a napkin, and he goes, and I've never been in a vocal booth in my life, dude. So he's like, "Okay, you go over there, put the headphones on." I said, "I don't even know what the cadence is. I've never even heard the song before. What
Right.
What do you?" He goes, "Just read the words," and then basically the song is about a guy who's trying to come to terms with why this woman lied to him. Mm-hmm. And so I don't remember the whole script, but towards the end, it's got this big wash of like keyboards and just swirling atmospheric thing. And then I come in and I say something to the effect of, "She told me she loved me. Why would she lie? Why would she lie?" And then it's, "Liar, liar, liar," and then "Pants on fire." so it's the whole,
I'm going to use that now. It's a soundbite I'm going to use.
It's the whole "liar, liar, pants on fire." So I'm in the vocal booth with the headphones on, and I look over to the guy. It's just Ginger and this guy named Ralph, who's engineering.
Yeah.
And I get on the playback on the mic, and I was like, and I could see them in the booth just going, "Oh my," they're looking at each other like, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "How was it?" And he goes, "Oh my God, mate, you sounded terrifying." And I was like, "So it's good?" And he goes, "It was great." And I said, "Can I do it again?" And he goes, because I'm still trying to figure out the cadence of the words and where they fit in the music.
Yep.
So we did 3 takes, and they kept the first one, and I ended up on the album.
That is fucking cool, dude.
But that guy Ginger's a huge fan of Trail of the Dead.
Yeah, man. Trail of the Dead ended up being really, we just ended up being like family, basically.
Yeah.
During the whole quarantine, it was just me and like their families and my family. They come over here, and even during the freeze, we had Conrad and the sound guy come over here, and it's because I haven't worked for them in such a long time. I think the last time I worked with them was in 2016, and that was West Coast tour that we did with the band Failure. I don't know if you're familiar with Failure.
Yeah.
And Local H, which was pretty amazing, fun tour. And so but we've always just stayed in touch, and we've become really close friends, and that's it. And I've gotten the validation from they were kind of like secretly my heroes for a while.
Yeah.
And so that's it. And, they involve me with the things that they do now, and anything that happens that's Trail of Dead involved, they always, bring me along. So I just, it's not so much about making money. It's the small things in life. Some of the best things in life are free.
Yeah.
Some of the greater things in life are earned, and I inadvertently earned some really cool validations, as well as you have as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
So
likewise.
I guess we're about to wrap this up. Is there anything that you would like to share besides this cool coffee mug? Talk louder. This is your podcast. Let's talk about your podcast, man.
Yeah, the Talk Louder podcast. It's you can find us on iTunes and Spotify. We have a Facebook page. The website is talklouderpodcast.com. And basically, it's this all came about because Jared Tootin, who is one of the guitar players in Broken Teeth, and was formerly in Pariah back in the earlier days. Jared is obviously a mutual friend of me and Jason McMaster, and he came up to me and Jason separately at one time. I remember the day he came up to me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing a podcast?" And I'd had various people along the way say, you should do a podcast because of all the stories that you have or whatever. And I said,
yeah, you're a treasure.
I have stories, but I don't know anything about technology and podcasting and all this. So it's like, I'm happy to talk, but I don't know how to set it up and do it. And it's just not I'm not a technology guy. And Jared's like, I'll handle all that. You and Jason just talk.
That's cool.
And I was like, okay. So anyway, cut to the chase. We started in February of this year. And Jared is our behind-the-scenes producer, and Jason and I are the two knuckleheads that are on camera and on mic. And we started basically just Jason and I kind of bantering back and forth about topics that we were interested in, metal stuff and record producers and favorite bands and all this. And then we realized that between the two of us, we know a lot of people, and maybe we should try to work a guest in now and then. Well, we started having guests, and the numbers started going up. People really enjoyed the third voice in the conversation, and of course, these people obviously have some great stories themselves. So we've been really fortunate lately. We've been pulling down some people that have an audience, and they've got interesting stories, and I'm a fan of a lot of them, and Jason's a fan of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Talk Louder podcast, it just kind of was a little brainstorm that Jared started fanning the flames, and Jason and I were like, sure, we'll talk, we'll do it.
I watched a couple of them. I mean, I didn't watch the entire episodes, but I watched a couple of them yesterday. And may I say, you guys are extremely photogenic, bro. You guys look so good on camera, man. Not like me. Because, dude, trust me, like, this is all raw video, and I'm going to do everything I fucking can to not look like a goblin. You guys look like fucking angels, okay? I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to let you all know, man to man,
Yeah.
you guys look good on camera.
Jason gives me grief.
I know. No, I'm just talking shit. I know that Jason's going to watch this and laugh his ass off, maybe.
Yeah, well, I'm not
But
saying,
he actually might be an angel.
yeah. No, he's great to work with.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean,
He's a pro.
He's a pro.
He's a pro,
He's
man.
got great stories. He's got an amazing memory. And when we started the thing, it was like we didn't want it. This is Jared again speaking. He said, "I don't want this to turn into Dave the journalist picking the brain of Jason the rock star. I just want two guys that." Because the reason I want you to have the podcast is I've seen you guys in the same room together, and you guys all of a sudden start talking about an album or something, and the conversation just goes, whoosh,
Yeah.
and it's like all you guys are off in your own little world, and if there's anybody else at that party that's interested in what, they gravitate towards you and they just start paying attention. I want it to be like that. I want you two guys to be like your belly up at a bar, and you're just shooting the breeze about something you just listened to or something you just discovered or some show that you just saw. So it's more peer to peer.
I like that. That sounds. That's really good. Yeah.
And that's kind of been the formula. And then ever since we've started having guests, it's kind of hard to have a guest and not pick their brain about something that they're known for. So it does turn into an interview of sorts, but we still try to keep it all. We don't want it to sound like an interrogation, just a conversation like we're doing today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
None of this is scripted. This
Right.
is all just off the cuff.
Exactly. So we try to make it as natural as we can, but hit on some high points, and then just kind of fill in the blanks with just some, average guy conversation. But the average guys just happen to be rock nerds.
Right. I do know that. Yeah, I know too much about useless. Yeah, if you want to know all about the East Bay scene in Berkeley and Telegraph Avenue, like in the early '90s, I could tell you all about Cringer. I could tell you all about Green Day, Rancid. Basic Radio was called. Basic Radio became Rancid. I don't know, a lot of people know that. Gilman Street Project. Yeah, we can go on and on and on. I'm from San Jose, California, so we
Yeah.
have our own like little thing there. But yeah, I know a lot of useless information, and
Well-
also I'm pretty good at talking shit.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I got a sense of humor. I got a really dark sense of humor.
Jason and I, we were talking as this was getting started, and as the podcast was, starting to take off. And we were both like, you know what? I knew all this useless information in my head would pay off one day, because now we have a show and we just riff off each other with all this, nonsense that's been stuffed in our brains since we were teenagers.
Well, I have a theory about that. I have a theory that some people might be curious as to, like what you do on your podcast. It's just two dudes talking.
Yeah.
Or how we're talking.
Yeah.
And it's all genuine. It's all sincere. Ain't no fucking ass kissing over here. We're grown ass men. We got
Right.
families. We do our shit.
Yeah.
Right. Online, there's very little sincerity when you look at Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. I mean, you see some every once in a while.
Yeah.
But most of the time, people just want to hear people being real people.
Yeah.
And that's how. And I'm like one of the realest motherfuckers you'll ever meet too.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I love what I love. I do what I do. I believe what I believe. I ain't bending over for nobody, and I'm not trying to get in anybody's way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's basically how I am.
Yeah. I mean, Jason and I have been friends for 20, 25 years, and so the conversation just comes easy to us, and we're comfortable with each other. We've known each other for a long, long time. I obviously respect him. I'd like to think he respects me, and I'm sure he does. But we just kind of have this mutual friendship and relationship where the conversation's easy. It just happens to be that we're both sort of like got these heads that are full of rock nerd nonsense that hopefully there's an audience for.
No, you guys are a treasure trove of rock and roll memorabilia. And as we're going into it, I guess we're gonna find some outro music. And I just really want to express to you how much I appreciate you.
Oh man, thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate you existing.
Oh, man.
I'm glad to have met you back in the day.
Long time
I'm happy
ago.
to see you at our gigs.
Yeah.
If hopefully one day, if High Wire Crucifixes plays again, I'm gonna have to lose like 40 pounds, and I need to do a lot of jogging because I get back into it. That's a very hard gig to do.
Yeah.
But which is in a lot of ways I respect McMaster. Having to sing like that takes dedication.
Yeah.
Anyways, we out of here. David Glessner.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, Rich.
Metal Dave.
This was fun.
Go check out his podcast, Talk Louder. And then if you want to fuck with this podcast, just go ahead and hit subscribe, hit the bell, and share with all your friends. And be well, be nice, be kind to each other, and don't ever take any shit from anybody.
Words
All right.
to live by.
All right. Bye.
See y'all.